Welcome back to FM Story. It's taken 19 seasons and 11 different clubs, but we've finally managed to complete the South American Glory Hunt save, and this is how we went about it. And so the wheels spin at the start of the save. Saw us begin the save in Brazil with Internacional. And what a start to the season it was. 4 seasons, 79.74% win rate. We won the Brazilian League 4 times. We won the State Championship 4 times. We even won the Copa Libertadores. Unfortunately, we did fall short in the Copa do Brazil. We did, I think, make it to one final. But other than that, we kind of struggled a bit as far as the Copa do Brazil was concerned. It got to the point where we'd spent 4 seasons there. We were nearly a quarter of the way through the allotted time for the save. We needed to move on and win trophies elsewhere. So we went to Argentina, and I think it helped trying to get Brazil and Argentina out of the way straight away. We went to Vélez. We had 2 seasons at Vélez. Again, over a 70% win rate. We won the Copa Sudamericana and the Copa de la Liga in the first season. And then in the second season, we did the double, won the league, won the cup. And that meant we'd completed everything in Argentina, and it was time to move on. And we moved on to Colombia and joined Junior. And we had a pretty decent first season. We got into, obviously, the semi-final playoff that the top 8 get into. We basically were rubbish in both the Apertura and the Clausura of that. But we did manage to win the Copa Colombia and come away with 1 trophy at the end of the first season. Going into the second season, the budget had been slashed. So we jumped ship for a bit more money to spend to Atlético Nacional. And that didn't really work. I mean, we had a higher win rate, but the expectations were a lot higher. And we were sacked before we'd even completed 1 season. We then needed to rebuild things a bit. So we went to Peru and joined Universitario and basically dominated in Peru. Won the league in our first season there, which meant it was time to move on again. And went to Universidad Católica. And I think this was probably the most dominant we were at any point. Apart from perhaps some of the seasons with Internacional, but we only lost 6 games in the whole season in all competitions, including the continental competitions. But we did the league and cup double in 1 season, and it was time to move on again. At that point, we decided we'd have another crack at the Copa do Brazil, and we went to Atlético Mineiro. When we got to Atlético Mineiro, we found out they weren't even in the Copa do Brazil in the first season, so that was a waste. We had another 1.5 seasons there after that, after we got knocked out of the Copa do Brazil again for a second time early on. We decided it was time to end. We did manage to win 1 more Brazilian league title and 3 state championships with Atlético Mineiro, but we moved on and went back to Colombia with Millonarios. Now, Colombia obviously has the 2 championships, the Apertura and the Clausura. There was no overall champion at any point in the year for that. So we decided early on in the save that we needed to win both the Apertura and the Clausura. It didn't need to be in the same season. It didn't even need to be with the same club, but that was going to make things more difficult. However, we took over as the Clausura was about to begin in 2036 and just went on an unbelievable run of form. Didn't lose a game in that first half season we were there. Managed to win the Clausura in our first season, coming from well back. The second season wasn't great. We made it into, obviously, the semi-final stages, but got knocked out. Independiente Medellin were our nemesis so often in Colombia. But going into 2038, we dominated the Apertura stage, managed to make our way into the actual final and won the trophy. And at that point, we'd done everything in Colombia, so it was time to move on. We knew we had to go to Uruguay or Brazil and we didn't really have an awful lot of options. So when the job with Cerrito came up, who'd done well in the opening half of the season, we jumped at the chance, and we found it very difficult early on. That first half season, we really struggled, and I did think it was going to be the second time we were going to be sacked as the save went on. Second season, we went in and realised what an overachievement the first season was, because we were predicted to be struggling to stay up in the second season. We actually ended up, when the season review came out, as the biggest overachievers. We did make it to the Copa Uruguay final, but we fell apart and conceded 3 goals in the last 15 minutes to lose that. And at the end of the second season with Cerrito, we realised we were never going to win anything with them, and we needed to move on. Luckily, the River Plate job came up. Now, the River Plate job came up because I think they finished 8th in the overall table in the season previously. But in the 5 seasons prior to that, they'd won the league 4 times and finished second once. So obviously there was a decent squad there. The job became available, and they took us on, despite the relative lack of success we'd had with Cerrito. And we basically dominated from start to finish. We ended up winning both the league and the cup in that one season we had with River Plate. And at that point, we were left with 2 seasons left in the 20 seasons that we had to do the save. We had 1 trophy left to win, which is the Copa do Brazil. There wasn't an awful lot of options became available, and I did think we were going to need to take a job and then see what job we could get for the final season in Brazil to see if we could win the Copa do Brazil. But somehow, with Coritiba, we did the unthinkable and actually won the Copa do Brazil, and it was the most bizarre cup run. I mean, we won the first round because we were the highest seed, having drawn against the lower division team. The 4th round, we had to come from behind after getting beaten in the first leg by our former club, Atlético Mineiro. The quarter-final against a team from outside the top flight, we had to come from behind after the first leg, and we needed penalties to make the semi-final. We then played a Sao Paulo club who, in the save, have been absolutely unbelievable. I think they'd won 6 and lost 1 Copa Libertadores final in 12 seasons. At this point, they'd won, I think, the Copa do Brazil 4 or 5 times. They'd won the league title 5 or 6 times in the last 10 years prior to this. So Sao Paulo were flying. We managed to get a 1-1 draw in the first leg. It looked like we were going to get hammered in the second leg. They scored early on, then missed a penalty. We got a penalty of our own in the second half. And then it required the most tense and nerve-wracking penalty shootout ever for us to get into the final. And then in the final, we hammered Bahia in the first leg 4-0, but then conceded 2 goals in the first 3 minutes of the second leg. We then levelled it up on the night and restored the sort of advantage going into the second half, and then they scored another couple of early goals as well, and we were very much hanging on, but we did win the Copa do Brazil. Also, we'd won the state championship with Coritiba. We finished 5th in the league after a pretty dismal start, and we made it to the Copa Sudamericana final as well, where we were beaten by Palmeiras in extra time. So a pretty decent season to end things, but the main thing was winning that Copa do Brazil. And so this Glory Hunt saves over. It took 19 seasons, 11 clubs, 1,058 games, but we finally won all the trophies that we set out to win at the beginning of the save. And so there we are. That is the save done and dusted. Thanks to everyone that watched. There will be a new save coming up in a couple of weeks once we've had the Easter break out of the way. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.